This is Main Street with Gary Allen. Now, here's Gary.
And good day to you, all of you. I hope everybody's had a wonderful time since the last time we kind of connected. We got a great show for you today. It's not only myself, but our dear friend, Mr. Dave Lamont, is going to be joining us in just a couple of seconds. But before I get to that, I just want to say thank you to the Japanese Gardens for keeping this program moving forward, along with the Elks Lodges of South Florida for their continued support. Excuse me. Joining us today, as he does from time to time, he'll be back on July 8th, is my good friend and brother from another mother. Here he is, Mr. Dave Lamont.
Hello there. Pardon the shadows. Once again, the lighting in this room is not what it ought to be. I am not glowing in the dark or glowing at all, for that matter.
You're telling me you don't glow?
I do not. I'm going to try to fix that while you tap dance, which I know you can do. I'm going to make it better if it's possible. This is what happens when you put a guy with absolutely no technical talent in charge of his own stuff. Well, I can't reach it. There's too many papers.
That's all right. You look fine.
Oh, that's better. Whatever that was.
You look fine, Dave. You look fine. Before we get into the NFL, the NBA, and all the other stuff, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the passing of one of the great ball players of all time, and that was Willie Mays. You and I both grew up watching Willie play baseball. Of course, Bill Walton passed away a few weeks earlier than that, one of the great centers of all time. But what are your thoughts when you heard about Willie at 93 passing, and with the way they're treating the Negro Leagues now, with the game that they had on this past weekend and the celebrations of the Negro League, including their records into Major League Baseball, which is a wonderful and beautiful thing because they had some of the greatest ball players to ever play Major League play baseball, period, in the Negro Leagues. But what were your thoughts on Willie Mays?
Well, just going through all of the garden you set up there, the Negro League thing is a great idea. Baseball is such a hard sport to compare eras because of the way everything was done, even in the Negro Leagues. Everything from travel to playing conditions to lack of information about medicine and nutrition. There's so many things that made it in some ways more difficult to play. On the other hand, it's probably easier for truly great players to rack up some big numbers because I'm sure there was a bit of a lack of pitching depth that you don't have nowadays. You didn't have the specialty relievers. You didn't have left-handers coming in to face a lefty to get one out to be replaced. All of the different things. And I guess the travel in some ways is better, but in some ways it's longer. Not 1 miles anyway, not necessarily in time. So it's hard to compare eras. But as far as Willie goes, for whatever it's worth, I would have to consider him the best of all time. If you can do this with the different eras, simply because there wasn't an aspect of the game he did not excel in. We've had a lot of guys who were great hitters. We have a lot of guys who are great fielders or dangerous base runners, or maybe you could do 3 of the 5 tools and be worthy of all-star consideration, or 4 of the 5 tools and be worthy of Hall of Fame consideration. But he is in a category. He's not alone in that category, but he's in the category with the 5 tool players that literally dominated the game. And in my book, if you're going to be among the greatest, you have to have dominated. You can't just be, I was a really good player. And you got to do better than that. And he did better than that. At my age, I didn't see a lot of him. Had there been the cable TV and all of the different teams having all the contracts that they have, and although that's going up in flames, I would have seen a lot more of him. But again, I don't know if I would have understood it as much as I appreciate him now as an older guy. But yeah, I don't know if there was anybody any better. You can argue it; it's a fun argument to make, but. In the more modern era of baseball, I mean, there wasn't anything he couldn't do.
Yeah, he was way beyond that fabulous catch, of course, that we all know from the right over his shoulder as he's running towards the fence and everything. He played for
what, about 20 then when that happened?
Yeah, 2021.
I thought so. Yeah.
He was that was done in New York because he played for the New York Giants. He played for the San Francisco Giants. He played for the New York Mets. He also played in the Negro Leagues, as a lot of the black players did back then before they got into the major leagues. He was also a really nice guy. There's a cute story about him, and Tim Kirchin told this story the other day about meeting Willie Mays for the very first time. And Kirchin said, "Well, do you have any funny stories?" He said, "Yeah, about Bob Gibson," because Willie's voice was up here. It was an octave
Yeah.
way up here. And he said, "Yeah, I got to meet. I went to Bob Gibson's house in St. Louis once when we were playing the Cardinals. We went to have dinner with he and his family, and he said he greeted us at the door with the glasses on and thick lenses, and he said, and he said, "Do you have to wear those to see?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "How in the hell do you pitch the way you do with those glasses so thick, like Coke bottles?" And he just died laughing all night long looking at that. And he said the next night played against him and he struck Willie out like 3 times. But I remember some great games between he and the Phillies back when I was a lad. And I just remember watching him in baseball, and he personified what a baseball player is all about. Hustle all the time, took pride in what he did, helped the young people, young players coming up. He was just everything you would want in a teammate and a ball player on your clubhouse. So, it's just one of those crazy things. But I just wanted to get your
Mhm.
input into it. Um, about a week ago now, I guess, it's been about a week or thereabouts. My Celtics won the NBA championship.
Wait, you own the Celtics? I did
Yeah,
not
pretty
know that.
much.
That
Yeah, yeah.
that's good to know in case I need tickets for a game sometime. All I have to do is call you since they're your Celtics. That's awesome.
Yeah, you and Ed Berliner,
Yeah.
you and Ed,
You won't
uh,
catch that at a basketball game, but that's beside the point.
yeah,
Um,
that is a strange part, but yeah. But no, as a fan growing up with my dad from Connecticut, I grew up loving the Boston Celtics because Miami. When did the Heat come along? We were already what
late
in our
'80s,
30s? We
late
were here in
'80s.
our we were in our late 30s, right, Dave? Because you and I aren't far apart in age. Well,
I
I
think
mean,
if you're in your late 30s during the start of the Heat, we are a lot farther apart in age.
well, I'm trying to think. I'm
It's
71
late
now.
20s for me. Yeah, we have a little bit of a gap.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Mom still loved you best. Anyway,
I was an only
anyway,
child. She had no choice.
yeah. I had 8 to fight with, and she loved everybody else better than me. But uh, what I'm getting at is Jason Tatum said at the end of the game, and he said a couple of days before Game 7, or before they won the championship, that it didn't matter uh, how they were going to win the championship, whether it was in 4 games or 5 games, but everybody was picking them apart. Well, they only got to play against, the Heat had Jimmy Butler out, and this team had this team out, and this team had this players out, and and they can't help who they're dealt as far as players are concerned, or who they're going to play up against. They can't help that.
Well, this is a common. It's so funny, Gary. This I could take this into a completely different tangent, but when we're growing up, we never thought of the idea of that there would be places where you could get information about something
Hmm.
all day long. It would never stop. And that's happening with news. It happens with sports and subreddits of the like golf channel and baseball channel and football channel and hockey channel and basketball channel and tennis channel and all this. There's almost a point where there's so much time to fill that every narrative just gets dried out and they look like raisins after a while. And that's just
Yeah.
a narrative. Yeah, there's nothing you can do about that. The injuries, upsets, things that, we always start out. I've always said the dirtiest word in the sports language is expectations.
Yes.
There's nothing worse for a fan. I'm only talking about now from a fan's perspective. Then, let's say football is coming up, the NFL or college are coming up. You're a couple months away. And you're reading on the internet, oh man, my college team's going to be in the playoffs. They've expanded the playoffs, and we're going to be there. Or my football team, Vegas says they're going to win 11 games. Oh, this is great. and then it doesn't happen. For whatever reason, it doesn't happen. You are angry. You have been let down. You've been told I love you, and you find out that other person doesn't love you anymore. It's all of
Yeah.
those feelings rolled into one. So I think that's one thing, that people expect a certain thing and it doesn't happen. They feel incredibly let down, and it happens in sports. I don't know about politics. I pay casual attention to that, but yeah, it's a weird phenomenon. So when you read all about this over and over and over and over again, or hear about it over and over and over again, after a while, these narratives get to the concrete in your brain. You can't break them up. So it isn't fair. They don't have a choice of who they play. And it doesn't mean that they want to play a lesser team. Some teams would prefer the challenge of playing the other great team.
Yeah.
You just have to do with what you have to. And if it ends up that the series isn't interesting, well, that happens. Sometimes the two best teams meet and the series sucks. There's zero guarantees other than that somebody's going to end up winning. And so that stuff, it wears me out after a while. I feel very badly for the people who have to produce these daily television talk shows.
Yeah.
To come up with material that is reasonably fresh and try to avoid, and I don't think they avoid them anymore, hitting it into the same sand trap on the same hole every time with the overly repetitive topics.
Yeah. I get a kick out of the prognosticators on the networks like ESPN and Fox and etc. And they're constantly saying, oh, well, the Celtics lost in game 4. They got blown out by Dallas. Did that kill the mojo for the Boston Celtics? No, they just got blown out.
Well,
It's
let me stop you. If you were producing,
yeah, well,
what
you
do
got to
do?
come up with content,
right? Then that's the problem. And it's been a problem for them. That's their job. They're required to put together a show. That means that the guys like us, the so-called talent, have to take that and maybe they tweak it. Maybe they go, I don't want to talk that way, or I don't want to do that angle. Let's come up with a different angle. I want to talk about it this way. Okay, fine. It should be the talent should have the last word, but
right?
that's the problem. And then with 2 to 3 days in between games, if you're a huge fan of that sport and that's the one you follow, or you're a big Celtics or Dallas fan, do you want to go down that same repetitive road where 2 days later they're talking about the same thing, maybe with two different people that you've already heard for 3 days? That's the big problem with that. That's why I don't watch these shows, because I don't feel like they educate me.
They don't.
It's just there because they're inexpensive to produce. You don't have to travel. Sometimes maybe these shows will go on the road, but you can, everybody stays home, so you cut your travel costs.
Right.
They're not that successful ratings wise. It is a small portion of the television viewing audience that watches these shows. And even if they watch them in a streaming format or watch them on phones and things like that, which does affect television ratings, the traditional television ratings, it's still a tiny, tiny chunk of the audience. And I think they get way out of proportion attention in the sports world because everybody is so thirsty to try to get content on the air or in the air that it's kind of sad.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's very sad. It's in the other arena of politics now. Networks are making up all kind of crap to attract an audience, to keep an audience, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But my point.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. The point being is the prognosticators will say one day, oh, the Celtics has lost their mojo and Dallas has found it. And then when the Celtics blew them out in game 5, it was like, oh, the total opposite, the 180. That just that drives me crazy.
It's a risk you take, right? If you make a prediction right now, think of something that's going to happen or that you're interested in happening down the road. You go, okay, so-and-so's going to win the World Series. All right, you're a Phillies guy. They have a great team. So you might say, okay, you know what? Phillies are going to win the World Series. Okay. It's, by the way, which is very possible. And then they don't.
And so could your Orioles. I mean, they're right in the pack too.
So, and then we make our predictions and we're like, okay, that's it. And then they don't. Well, now you got to figure out why. And you have to, or the other way around, you think, oh, Phillies, geez, they just, this guy and that guy, you can take it that road. And then they won. Yeah, I knew all along they were going to win. And here's why. That's the nature of having to do this every single day. I don't know how some of those guys do it. I really don't. I mean, other than the fact that some of them are way overpaid, that
Hmm.
it's. I guess they do it for the money. I don't know how you can
Yeah.
possibly love doing
Well,
something like that.
Stephen A. Smith just turned down ESPN for 90 million.
Well, it was 18 a year. Was it 18 for 5?
Yeah, but now it went up to 90 and he turned him down on that. He wants
Not 90 million a year. I think it's 18 for 5 would be
yeah,
90.
not he wants Pat McAfee money.
Well, if he gets it, bless his
Good for
heart.
him. Yeah.
But others will suffer in the wake of it. I'm amused when he says my salary doesn't cause problems for other people. Bull crap.
Oh, please.
It does. It may not, it may affect people in ways that the public will never find out, and it certainly would affect how they spend their money in other ways. It's all tied together. He's just defending himself.
Look at a young lady who went to where we went to college, who was a stalwart broadcaster, one of the best in the business, Susie Colbert. As soon as McAfee signed his contract, within a month or two, they sidelined Steve Levy, although Steve is now back doing the
Well,
Panthers.
he's still around. That was a decision to try to get Joe Buck. That had nothing to do with Susie Colbert or Pat McAfee with Steve Levy. They
Was
just
that
didn't
with
think
Joe
he
Buck?
was well, yeah, don't forget who was the next Monday Night Football guy after Steve was Buck.
Buck,
And they
yeah.
spent a fortune for him. And as far as I know, they don't really use him for anything else. And then
No.
they way overpaid to get Troy Aikman so they could keep that team together, which leads
Yeah.
to another theory, which we can table or dive into. But I'll
Whatever
leave
you
that
want
up
to
to
do.
you. Well, it's your
It's up
point
to
about
you.
Susie was I don't know how much was financial. I don't know whether somebody gets a bug in their ear and decides that so and so's been around too long. Some people there have had tremendous longevity and will always have a place there. And there's a few pillars that I can think of that will never, ever, ever get fired there unless they do something criminal, and they're not going to. I don't know what happened with Susie. She was everybody's choice as a solid pro and well respected. But the thing at that place, and I avoided it almost all the time, was they would just go through these rounds where they just, it's just like the St. Valentine's Day massacre. They just line up a few people against the wall and let them have it. And that's just a metaphor, folks. And they've gone through that every few years to save money, and they do other things to save money. And there's so many games that you are watching are not produced on the site by a production team. The announcers may be there, and obviously you have camera operators there,
Right.
but the production team is in a studio someplace in Connecticut, most likely, maybe Charlotte.
Yeah.
That saves money, and
Yeah.
frankly, the home audience rarely can tell the difference.
Bally Sports does that with baseball.
Are they still even in business?
Yeah, because they
Bally's?
have the Bally Sports still has every Major League Baseball team just about sewn up. I mean,
Are
the
they not
Marlins.
having massive financial problems to the point where
Yeah.
the Comcast won't even carry them?
Yeah, them and and even over at the NFL Network, they're having layoffs because Brian
Now
Baldinger.
that was a surprise.
Yes,
That was a
but
major surprise. First, they moved everybody out to LA. Okay, that's fine. That's not the worst place in the world to live, at least not to me.
no,
But
not to me either.
then they let off a bunch of people. Like, wait a minute, this is the NFL. The NFL doesn't lose money. So
No.
what's driving that? I was shocked to see that. I really, really was. I don't know whether if it's a competency issue. If you think, hey, so and so just isn't cutting it, we have to let that person go, or if this person isn't getting along with other people, and it's affecting not just their work but the work of the people around them, then sometimes you have to make very difficult decisions. But that story to me, Gary, when that came out, really surprised me. How the NFL lost money on anything.
Yeah. Main Street with Gary Allen, along with my good friend, Mr. Dave Lamont. He joins us from time to time. He's one of the great gentlemen of all time. He's been a friend of mine for a number of years. I was shocked about the NFL Network because the first name I went to look for is my good friend, Brian Baldinger, because Brian and I used to do Arena Football League games together.
Cool.
I was a sideline reporter, and I looked for him, and I called him up, and he was in Fort Lauderdale at the time because he has a place there. And he said, no, I'm in no danger of getting it. He said, it's some of the high price spread, which he is, but he contributes an awful lot. He works his butt off for that network.
A lot of those guys did. Andrew Siciliano was,
Yes.
their red zone guy for a
Yeah.
long time. I mean, he really helped make that a credible program with his talents, and they cut him loose. Now he's good enough; he should land someplace else, wherever that may be. But yeah, those are hard decisions to make, and I wouldn't want to be the person making them. I can't even imagine sitting in front of a sheet with names on it and going, "Well, I'll keep Baldinger. That's fine. He needs the payments for his finger." But what about this guy? Yeah, no, we're gonna have to let these two go.
When he comes on this
Yeah,
show, I'm going to have him tell you the story about his finger because it
well, I
is.
can have a pretty good idea, having known and worked with a few football players. There's not very many who have that pinky finger where it started out in life.
Yeah, it's. But Brian is. Everybody calls him Baldy. I don't. I call him Brian. It's like our good friend Jeff DeForest. I call him Jeff. I don't call him Defo.
You're the
Everybody
only
calls him.
person in the entire world who uses
Well,
his
this way, if I
second
call
name.
him up on the phone, if I don't have his number, you do. But if I ever call him up on the phone, I go Jeff. He'd go, oh, Gary. Okay, fine. But they keep people on some of these programs prognosticators for betting, which is huge now. That was another thing that shocked me. The NFL for years and all the other sports stayed away from Las Vegas because of gambling, and now they're embracing it like nobody's business. It's like money, 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 and that's it. And
Well, of
that's all they
course.
care about.
Well, that's all almost anybody cares about anymore. And whether it's keeping it and not spending it, or making it and not spending it. Well, the gambling thing, Gary's interesting. I have to be careful not to be too hypocritical. I'm perfectly fine with gambling. I gamble myself on sports occasionally,
Oh yeah.
small amounts of money. I do a March Madness trip virtually every year and hang out with people and bet the games on the first week. So I go to casinos. So I don't want to be a phony baloney about gambling. The concern with gambling is that, and we've seen it a couple times already, that we're headed for a massive scandal in some sport with gambling. We've already had some
Pete.
warning signs. You know, the player in the NBA who was banned with Toronto. There was a baseball player recently, I can't think of who it is, that
Yeah.
got into some trouble. There's all sorts. You had Phil Mickelson with massive gambling problems, which may or may not have led to him heading to the Live Golf Tour. Of course, they're paying obscene amount of money, but there's concern that gamblers can reach guys, or here's the other part: guys will
Yeah.
start to bet. So you have these accounts. It's on your phone. You can literally do it while you're sitting on the john. You could start betting on games and betting on prop bets and betting on parlays and betting on all this stuff. And
Right.
the money is not in your hands. It's not like, here, Gary, here's $100. Go sit at the blackjack table. That 100 you can feel and you can see it, whether you add to that total of chips or you lose the 100 in 5 minutes. You
Yeah.
saw it go away. I think
Yeah.
when you have one of these, it's not as real. So I think that's part of it. And guys are risking their futures, thinking, "Oh, they'll never catch me." Of course, those are famous last words. "They'll never catch me." And
Yeah.
that's the other concern. Is it affecting? There's always going to be rumors that it's going to reach officials. There's an umpire
Yeah.
being investigated. He's denied everything. A major league umpire that he was gambling on something. I'm not sure what it was, but those guys are not even allowed to go to a casino. I don't think they could even go to like the Hard Rock Cafe if they wanted to, because you'd have to enter a casino to eat there.
Right.
There's that's the concern. The other end of that, Gary, and you know this, in a way, I hated the way it used to be done, where you would either have to use code words or you just have to ignore, or you'd say, well, they were a big favorite when you had maybe a football game that was closer than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Now, at least you can talk about it. So I think that relieves some of the pressure and takes away some of the hypocrisy. I don't think you're causing somebody to gamble if I sit there, hey, Gary, this was a 3-touchdown game on the board in Vegas, but right now with 2 minutes to go, it's only 3-point difference. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But there would have been a few years ago, you would have got in trouble for saying something like that.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
it's kind of like, I like being treated like a I was happy, for example, that there's the casinos in South Florida. There's a few. It's not. We're not Vegas here, but there's a few, and
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I want a nice, and I don't. I go maybe 3 or 4 times a year, maybe 5. That's it
Yeah.
in my own backyard. It's
Yeah.
there if I need it or want to do it. If it's not, I don't go all the time.
Yeah, it's
So
right
it's
down there. Yeah, it's right down
well,
there.
yeah, I can get to the Hard Rock in less than 20 minutes. The Harrah's by Pompano Park, which used to be a harness racing, and also to be fair to everybody, I've also worked and still do at Highline, which is a pari-mutuel, which involves gambling. Now it's
Yeah.
way smaller scale than it used to be, but it was a big thing when I was working there in the 1980s.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I like being treated like a grown up. Was my point. I like having the ability to say, no, I don't need to gamble. I'm fine with it,
Mhm.
but I'm glad other
Mhm.
people can do it. But in sports, and the other thing is how much you look around, you watch a ball game, you're going to see DraftKings come up as an ad. You're going to see all
Yep.
these different ads come up for the chance to go. And the only thing I know I've rambled about this, but it's an interesting topic to me. Yeah, the only thing I'm a little worried about is the effect on younger people because of
Mm.
what I just mentioned with the phones.
Yeah.
The I'm
Accessibility of it is a lot easier than it used to be.
the accessibility is easier, absolutely right, 100% right. And again, the realism, it's still kind of a fantasy if you don't feel money come out of your pocket.
Yeah.
Now, maybe you
True.
got not a calculator, but you got a counter there that says, "Hey, look at that, dollars are zero now." An hour ago, it said 250.
Mhm.
And that worries me a little bit that teenagers are doing this and talking about it, and that troubles me a little bit that it's that readily accessible and supposedly you can't beat, but I know for a fact that there are teenagers out there who are betting on phones.
Yeah, video game gambling, like the video games that they play, since they
Well,
were
no,
little infants.
I'm talking about sports gambling. I'm talking
Yeah,
about
yeah, 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 yeah.
hey, boy, good thing I had the Warriors last night and Curry. I had Curry going for 30, what these companies have done, it's very clever. Instead of just saying, hey, I'm going to bet, $100 at the Warriors at minus 150 today because I think they're going to win the game. No, now they're doing things like, hey, is Steph Curry going to make 6 threes tonight?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, put some money on it. Do you think Curry's going to go for 30 tonight? Well, you can bet on it.
yeah.
Who's going to score the first goal in this game? Who's going to do this? And is the first scorer going to be a field goal today? Hey, it's yes is plus 335 and no is minus 600. Take your shot.
There's a prop on everything in sports now, Dave.
Oh,
There's a
hell yeah.
prop on everything. I mean on everything, and it just I'll just go back to when I was a youngster. You know the story because I've told it to you. I mean, when my brother played in Super Bowl III and they lost to the Jets, how many times at Hollywood Hills High School did I get? Did your brother take a bribe? Did your brother take a bribe? I mean, come on, you lost to the New York Jets of all people. And I would turn around and say, "Do you ever think the Jets maybe were just better that day? Come on,
Well,
the
that's
whole
because
team took
Bubba
a
Smith
bribe."
kept saying the game was fixed.
Yeah, well, because Bubba died never believing that that Joe Namath and the Jets had their number, and that was the end of the argument as far as I was concerned. My brother, till the day he died, still didn't like the idea that he didn't have a ring for Super Bowl III. But there's a lot of things that we all have to eventually get to. Now, for me, I can walk through a casino. I could go down to Sterling Road, right down there to the Hard Rock. I can walk through the whole casino. I mean, because I lived in Vegas for how many years and never, I'll hear the bing bong, bing bong, bong, and it doesn't affect me at all. I'm not a gambler. I lost $700 when the Jets beat the Colts in the Super Bowl. I didn't have it. I had to borrow the money from my dad, and I'm still paying interest to my dad today, and he's been dead since '99. So,
You have got
I
to
don't.
get a better job.
Exactly. All right. Back to the NBA real quick, and then we're going to move on to the NFL. JJ Redick, head coach of the Lakers. Are you kidding me? That was my first reaction. Are you kidding me? Just because he was a podcast partner. I mean, you and I are podcast partners on this show, and hopefully expand it out before too long. Nobody's going to hire you or I as a coach anywhere. Well, maybe
No,
you.
they
You're
wouldn't even ask me to be an assistant coach at the high school I work at. I mean, this is such a setup for a failure. I almost think it's going to end up working, but I don't really know how because the team is not that great as structured.
no.
And yes, you have two, megastars, but Anthony Davis is frequently hurt, and LeBron doesn't play a full schedule anymore. The rest of the team is, okay, But the West is, Denver's a better team, Dallas is a better team, Oklahoma City's a better team. We
Better
can go
team.
on.
Yeah.
I think if San Antonio has a good, this year's draft isn't going to change a lot of teams, but San Antonio with Wemby, if they give him another piece, they're going to be heading in the right direction. They're going to be way more interesting to watch than the Lakers will be.
Oh, yeah.
So there's, and if you're Reddick though, money's huge. It's a
Yeah.
chance. It's almost for Reddick. I don't want to say can't lose. And as soon as I started to say that, I had to stop myself because his reputation will take a hit if they don't win. If they do win,
Yeah.
then he looks like the smartest guy in the building, and so do the Lakers. Because hey, we told you this guy could coach. We told you this guy knew the game. Now, knowing the game, I'm not going to dispute Reddick's knowledge of the game.
Yeah.
He does. He
Well, he
certainly
spent
has
15
plenty
years in
of
the
it.
league. He spent 15 years
Right.
in the
He
league.
has that. He had a great education in college in the game from being at Duke. There's all of that. So it's. I think the problem that most people are having is that he came from television.
Yeah.
And that he's without any, he wasn't one of these grinding assistant coach guys like the Cavaliers just hired. And it looks desperate. And
Well, yeah. I mean, considering what happened before him, Hurley turning it down. I mean, was our
Hurley
good friend
wasn't
Joe Cassell, was Joe Cassell correct in his little thing on Facebook that that was a setup? I mean,
I
they
don't know if
offered
that
him.
was a setup to improve Hurley's lot. I mean, I don't know how much more Hurley's lot's going to help, but I don't think college coaches get respect in that league. Brad Stevens got away with it, but there aren't many others. Billy Donovan has had some success at Oklahoma City. He's kind of barely above water in Chicago now. But
Yeah.
there's other guys who just walk in there, including John Calipari, and did nothing
Yeah.
in the NBA.
But what I mean by a setup is that the Lakers intentionally give him a number. I think it was 90 million. I think it was, or no, 70 million, which is kind of where he's at UConn. Did
Right.
they intentionally do that because they wanted to appease LeBron, which
Well, I don't know if LeBron was interested in Hurley or not. If you have to go to that extent to hire a coach by faking somebody else out, that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't. What's the benefit in that?
Yeah.
Hurley was a nice name, but it just didn't make any sense. His style, I don't know if that plays at that level. I just don't think it does. You're talking about a league of grown men now, a league who
Yeah.
don't have to worry, a bunch of guys who don't have curfews and things like that. And, it's a different world in college where you can, if you win, have a
Mhm.
lot of hand in how and your team is run.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was shocked at that. I was disappointed that he considered it. I think it's smarter for him to stay. It's good for the game. It's obviously great for UConn. And I think and now does he leave UConn for another job in college ball? Yeah,
Maybe.
that I can
Maybe.
see. Oh, I can
But
see that
isn't
happening in a few years.
but that's not going to be on the West Coast. The story is, according to what couple of friends of mine, because my sister lives in Hartford, and according to what a couple of friends of hers said, that the wife is an East Coast woman. She doesn't want to live in California. She doesn't even want to live in the Midwest. She wants to stay on I-95.
Okay.
So Storrs, Connecticut, I don't know how many people who are going to be watching this particular program today. Storrs is a nice area. I mean, it's not a horrible place to live and raise your children and educate your children and move on and have a nice job at UConn. He's got a comfy job at UConn as long as he keeps pumping out victories.
Right. That's always the big if. But I've been to Storrs a few times. It's bucolic would be the word I would use for it. It's not even that close to Hartford, actually.
No, it's not.
It's not. I don't know if people make a commute from Hartford to Storrs and back and forth. The people who work in Hartford, Hartford itself is pretty quiet. But it's no. I think, especially with coaching now being like it is with all, as I go back to what we talked about earlier, all the 24-hour this, 24-hour that. It's if you can find any kind of happiness in your life and still be a coach, you gotta hang on to that happiness, especially if you have family.
Yes.
I think you have to have those considerations. I think people kept when Shaka Smart was at VCU. Once he had that Final Four trip, every year people were trying to find another job for him, and every year for 5 or 6 years, I think he stayed at VCU, and I think that because he was happy there until finally Texas just probably offered him more money than he could ever imagine because that's what
Right.
Texas can do.
Yes.
And he finally took off, and guess what? Didn't work out.
Well,
And now he's in Wisconsin at Marquette, where he's doing pretty well.
yeah.
Um, the I think if you have those opportunities, it's great to listen. It never hurts to listen, and I won't knock a guy for listening, but I think you do have to factor your own personal happiness into this. If you step into another job and everything's different, and it's you're not happy, then you're not helping yourself, and you're not helping those who are close to you.
No, absolutely not. And going to Los Angeles, of all places, is not a very pleasurable. I mean, living in LA, if you got the money, it's great. I lived there for a number of years, and you certainly like LA yourself. It's not a horrible place, but
No,
right
I
now
think it's kind of fun.
the Lakers are not the team in LA that you want to go play for. They're not really unless you're willing to put up with the rebuild, which is what they're going to have to do. The Clippers are the
They'll
team
never
in there.
call it that, though, Gary. They
No,
will
no,
never
I know.
call it a rebuild in LA.
Yes, I know.
Their fans won't accept that word. The Clippers have always been, will always be the bastard stepchild.
Yeah.
But even though their ownership situation is probably better with the Clippers than with the Lakers, but yeah, it's. And I think we spend too much time on the Lakers during the season. There's a lot of better stories in the NBA than the
Oh yeah.
Lakers. For the
Oh yeah.
longest time, until the Knicks actually got to be good, we spent too much time talking about the damn Knicks. They were a 30-win team for the longest time until they finally started putting together the right pieces.
Right.
That stuff drives me nuts.
One last NBA story, and this is a quick one. I just want to get this under the belt. Are the
Yeah,
Celtics the
as I
new
spilled my
Warriors?
drink there. Sorry.
I'm sorry about that.
That's so am I.
Bartender, please bring them a new drink. Are the Celtics the new Warriors?
In what way?
Maybe multiple championships. The next
Well, I tell
2
you,
out of 3.
yeah, I see what you're saying now. They are really well set up, aren't they? They
Yeah.
are all their studs are mid-20s. They have a very well laid out team. They obviously respond to their coach. And don't forget the situation they were in a couple of years ago, coaching wise, was kind of a mess.
Yes.
And that seems to have worked itself out rather well. Yeah,
Yeah.
we could be in for a bit of a dominant run. And I don't know where the challenge is going to come from. If you look at the East, maybe the Knicks. Philly just seems to be stuck.
Yes.
They were stuck for the longest time trying to build the team. Then they built it, and it just seems to plateau, and it just seems it can't get. So I don't know what they're going to do. This situation here seems stuck.
Yeah.
Milwaukee.
What are they going to? Yeah.
We can talk about that in a second. Milwaukee. You have a superstar and you have a generational talent. Milwaukee could be the one team that could screw with them, and maybe even the Knicks could be a
Yes.
pain. But long term, because the season is so long and the playoffs are so long, I and look at the West. Dallas got hot.
Yeah.
Denver. All their weaknesses were exposed, and I think they look
Minnesota.
Minnesota might be the team to watch in the West.
Indianapolis might be. I mean,
I think they've got holes. I just think they don't play defense, and you have to have some defensive effort in order to win.
I think that's what did it for the Celtics. They're so well balanced offensively, defensively. The bench. I mean, and what really got me, of course, was Pritchard twice in the playoffs. He hits a half-court shot just before halftime.
Mm-hmm.
That was just like, the rafters are speaking. The leprechaun has just spoke. It's all over. Let's go to something that is close to you and me in a sense, and that's college football. Because of the investigation that's going on by the Congress with the NCAA, there are now rumors that there may very well be cutting off walk-ons for college football teams.
I haven't heard that.
Oh, yeah. This is utterly ridiculous. Going from 120 players down to 85 or 95 players on your squad.
Mhm.
People do not understand. You and I understand, Dave, and people who will be watching will understand that the walk-ons are the guys who really love the game. But no, Rudy was a walk-on. Okay, for people who want to have an idea of what I'm referring to, Rudy was a walk-on.
That whole thing's a bit overrated, though.
Yeah, but I
Sorry.
mean, he never
You
got.
you don't have to feel that way. I'm just telling you that, and I've
Oh
met
no,
the
no,
man.
no.
It's just a
Yeah,
little over.
he turned out to be kind of a.
No, he's not a bad guy at all. I'm just saying the story.
Well, there's a
Anyhow,
lot of
I'm
Hollywood twists and turns in there that probably didn't happen.
well. So tell me about the walk-on thing and what this has to do with Congress, because I'm missing a gap
Well,
here.
there's going to be a control on the NIL money, that each college is only going to be allowed to have so much NLI money, and
Right.
therefore they're going to have to reduce their rosters in a number of sports other than football, be baseball, basketball, etc.,
They've
track and
already
field.
cut very few baseball players, and very few of the alleged non-revenue sports are on full scholarships. You know that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But this could knock it down to 85 to 95 players, which would mean that walk-ons aren't welcome anymore on a football program. Kirby Smart, Lane Kiffin said, if that turns out to be what happens, we will pay out of our own pockets. And some other coaches, I guess, will probably do the same, or the
Mhm.
schools somebody will, maybe a booster, pay for the same to have these gentlemen in there. They're an important cog in a college football program. They run the scout teams. They are the scout teams. They help prepare the teams during the weekdays for the upcoming game on Saturday or whenever it will be. They're an important, integral part of a college football team, and people need to understand that. And where this is all, why Congress is even thinking about reducing this, is beyond me. But I caught
Well,
it, and I thought this would be interesting to talk about.
I'm looking at an article now because they gave me a chance to Google this, because this is something I hadn't heard. So you're right about the whole cap thing is interesting. They're talking about the 85. So it's nothing is definite, by the way. We should tell everybody that right away, that nothing
No,
is
not
even
yet.
remotely definite is going to happen. If you're not on scholarship, you can get NIL money to cover your costs, allegedly. And as you mentioned, some people are already going, okay, well, if this is what we have to do, we have to do. And occasionally you get a charming story of a player who becomes a talent and actually becomes a regular contributor as a walk-on. So that's one of the fun aspects of it. Most of these guys were just average high school, above average high school players. Maybe it's a numbers game. Maybe it's a situation where the parents can only do so much, but walk on is paying for the education for the most part. Yeah, I happen to know in my capacity as a teacher, a young man who's going to Indiana as a walk on as a kicker, who had a scholarship, by the way, to another school, which changed coaches. And when that happens, they redid a lot of their recruiting, and they booted him, so to speak. So it's the article I'm looking at here in the Athletic says that getting rid of scholarship limits while putting in roster caps could happen independently. Either way, it would be fundamental change. They list all the different sports and all the different scholarships for men and for
Yeah,
women.
right.
If the football limit stays at 85 and mean the end of walk-ons are already roster limits in place, cost cutting is one effect. If the football roster size is cut, some money to divert to revenue sharing and other sports. Trying to head off litigations, a roster cap would be more defensible, legally speaking.
Yeah.
And then teams that are exceeding the scholarship limits anyway, players not on scholarship can receive NIL money to cover all their costs.
Right,
So,
right.
I don't know. I don't like it, but there's so much change in college sports now, all driven, of course, by the one thing that everybody wants to have and doesn't seem to ever have enough of is money.
Money. Yeah,
That's why
yeah,
the sport is changing with the conference growth, and at the same time the conference growth, and at the same time the conference cuts. That's
yeah.
why we have a Pac-2 now. It's I know we're supposed to embrace change, and because we can't stop it, but
It's not always good.
it's really odd to me. I guess this is going to work out. I think the gamble, and by the way, once this starts, you can't undo it. In
No.
in 10 years, you're not going to see, well, The Big Ten's going to go back to 10 teams, and the Pac-12 is reforming. Only it's going to be the Pac-8 again, and
No, no,
the
no,
Big Eight is coming back, and we can't do that.
no.
So I don't know where it's going to end up eventually. I suppose maybe this is what the public wants. Maybe the public maybe I'm not as excited about it, but other people are going to love it. If the ratings are there,
Yeah.
if the television ratings are there, people are still coming to games and still alumni are still supporting and all this other stuff, then it's a successful experiment. Not an experiment, it's a successful change.
Main Street here with my wonderful friend and guest, Dave Lamont, Gary Allen, with you as we talk sports. The thing that gets me is that, like you mentioned earlier, Texas can pay for everything. The larger universities,
They
even
can.
like, even like, I mean, Texas.
I'll give you an
Texas,
example real quick how powerful Texas money is. We
yeah,
use swimming as an example since my wife was close to the sport. So they had a coach there, a man named Eddie Reese, who's resigning. He's in his 80s. He's done everything.
yeah,
Wildly popular, highly respected guy. She went to his farewell dinner in Austin. They had like 600 people show up.
yeah.
So what does Texas do? Holy crap, we have a legend to replace. What do? You just go out and get another one. They overlooked the woman who was their women's coach, and they hire Bob Bowman from Arizona State. Bob Bowman is best known as Michael Phelps's coach,
Uh-huh.
and Bowman had taken the Arizona State program way up. He's gone. Texas just goes, how much? Yeah, we got
No
this.
problem. Yeah, no problem.
Here you go, Bobby.
problem.
And Bob Bowman is now the director of swimming at Texas. Not that they needed him, but
Yeah.
that's Texas. I think
Every school in Texas, high school, college, every school has the money. Notre Dame will have the money. Alabama will have the money. LSU will have the money. The U will, where you and I went, the University of Miami, they'll find the money. But what I guess I'm getting at is, apparently the guys in Congress either don't care about college football or they figure, well, whatever. I mean, the walk-ons, as you know, are an integral part, I'll say it again, of a college football team's success comes Saturday. The less walk-ons, the less opportunity to run the plays that they need to do. They can't have their first and second string guys doing scout teams too much.
Well,
because
they'll
these
end up
guys
using third stringers. I mean, the more I think about it, I think you're looking at it emotionally, and I'm kind of looking at it in the other end of it more practically. Like, what would you do if you couldn't do this anymore? How many of these walk-ons? Yes, they are. I'm not saying they aren't important because they're available in every sport. Basketball has them. There's plenty of guys like that and women who do
Yeah.
this. But I don't know. I think it may cut some of the romance out of the game, but no one cares about that anymore.
No.
Every decision that's been made at the television level, particularly this 12-team playoff that's coming up, it's all television. It's all driven by television. It's all driven because you could say, well, the public demanded a larger playoff system. Well, we go back to the days of the BCS. Well, we're not going to have people voting after football games anymore for a poll. We're going to do a computer. We're going to do a cold-hearted computer. Okay, fine. Well, wait a minute. The computer's wrong. Well, wait a minute. You're the one who put the numbers in it. No, the computer's wrong. We're going to have a playoff. All right, let's go. Now we have a playoff.
Yeah.
Well, it's not good enough. Okay. We're never satisfied. And I don't know if
They never, and Dave, they never will be, because when they have the 12 team playoff system, then they're going to say, what about team 13 and 14?
Yeah.
Or
Well, how
15?
about the bastards who are trying and probably will end up doing this, expanding the NCAA basketball tournament?
Oh, God.
And the worst part of this, potential worst part of this, and this is going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen the upcoming season, but maybe 25-26.
Okay.
They're going now. What you're going to get a lot more of 16 and 15 10th rated team in the ACC rather than a 29 win team from the Mountain West that maybe didn't win their conference tournament,
but are a better team.
And these one bid leagues that get screwed repeatedly.
Yep.
And they actually think that's going to be more competitive. And again, what could possibly be driving it is because it's probably the most popular event the NCAA does is March Madness. And not probably, it is, because they don't do college football. That's a different entity. It's not the NCAA. And it's disturbing. You had the perfect event. Now they're going to do more of these play-in games and allow a garbage 17 and 15 team to have a chance to play in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that disturbed me. It took some of the purity out of it. And will I watch? Probably not, honestly. Now they're claiming they're going to leave the 64 bracket alone, and teams are going to have to play in. But who's going to lose these slots? There's no question who's going to lose these slots. So
Absolutely.
anybody who is in a one-bid league who might occasionally have a situation where somebody like a 15 and 15 team gets hot, wins the tournament, and gets the bid, and the team that dominated for the entire season will get shut out. And somehow the NCAA thinks this is going to be a better product.
I agree with you. We've got about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit more than 5 minutes to go. Panthers, will they win the Stanley Cup?
I have no idea.
You know more about them than I do.
I thought I did. A championship team doesn't usually do things like this. And then again, you could argue if you're Edmonton, a championship team doesn't usually fall behind 3-0.
True. True.
It's a confusing set of circumstances. I don't have a clue. You think, well, the goaltending will save the day. Well, will it? What happens if Edmonton scores first? What happens to Bobrovsky's confidence or the team's confidence?
Yeah.
What happens to that crowd? People are going to be excited. Drop the puck. We go a few minutes. Oh, it's 1-0 Edmonton. Oh, crap. Here we go again. I mean, it's going to get quiet. Now, if the reverse happens, of course, and the Panthers go up 1-0, I really believe, and I never would say this, but I really think the first goal wins the game. I'm not saying it's 1-0 game.
Right.
I'm saying that you score first in that game, you're going to take all of the vibe with you. Now, maybe I wouldn't normally say that. I really wouldn't, because a hockey game can take a long time, and a 1-goal lead means nothing. Yeah. But I really think in this case it will. If you're Edmonton, what a jolt. Oh, I knew these guys were backing down. We got them. There's nothing we can't do now. Let's just keep doing what we're doing, and they're gonna choke.
Oh, they smell the blood, Dave.
Of course they do.
Smell it.
They
smell it.
But you remember the Heat going into Boston was it a year ago?
Yeah.
And after blowing a 3-0 lead and winning rather comfortably.
And the only reason they won is because Jason Tatum sprained his ankle in the first 45 seconds of the game.
Well,
that's just
all the way back to what you talked about earlier with people criticizing the Celtics for whom they played. I would give you the same argument.
Yeah,
can't control that.
No,
and I think maybe this year's Celtics team would have handled that a lot better than last year's did.
Oh, sure.
But the point is, trying. That's why I don't even know if I have a prediction for the game tonight, because if you go by momentum, which I don't know how much that carries over after 3 days of waiting, then obviously it's Edmonton.
That's ungodly. That's ungodly, Dave. 3 days.
It's a long. I mean, not that you knew that it was going to be almost the longest possible trip in the NHL, but that's okay. I mean, they set it up. The networks and the league worked this out months in advance how they're going to do this for their own sake.
Right.
And so I get all of that, but do the Panthers really have a home ice advantage? They had the chance to win the cup here. We wouldn't be talking about this. We'd be talking about, can they repeat? And now we're talking about, the new argument is this one of the worst things that ever happened to South Florida sports, which could easily could be.
Yeah.
And or is it going to be, a great redemption story, and they're going to, be the last team to major league team here to win a championship.
Yeah. One final thought before we skedaddle out of here. There appears to be a lot of discussion going on about a salary cap for quarterbacks in the NFL. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. Jordan Love would be one of the guys that they're talking about. But for Jerry Jones, this has got to be a smile on his face, because I think he's had it with Dak. I think if Dak doesn't produce this year, it's over with. And I saw something on ESPN earlier today where the head coach, McCarthy, is not too happy with Jerry. He's getting tired of the excuse me, the antics that Jerry Jones puts you through.
Yeah, it was a
Um,
shock.
yeah, I mean, it's a buddy of mine who's a big Dallas Cowboy fan says, "Well, we need to get rid of McCormick." I said, "No, you need to get a new owner." I mean, he meddles in everything. It's like
Well,
my owner.
but that's all he has ever done, and you see how it's worked out.
Yeah,
He had early success because they did manage to fool the Minnesota Vikings into taking Herschel Walker, and they brilliantly built around that. But you also had a great mind in Jimmy Johnson,
yeah.
coming up with that, and he wisely, between his trades and his drafts, they did what they did. Um, that's another story. That's the second story you've dropped on me that I know nothing about. So is it only quarterbacks?
That's what I'm here. That's what I'm here for, big brother.
Well, I don't understand that because the NFL has unlimited money, and I don't see how this benefits a team. Nobody loses money in the NFL. Nobody. No owner's losing money. No owner
No,
is out, working a second job right now.
no.
I don't think I'm going to pull up to my grocery and find my owner working the cash register. So I don't see the need for it. And why only a quarterback? Why not the left guard? Why
Well,
why why are we not having a free safety salary cap?
I think after some of the raises that some of these quarterbacks have gotten in the last 6 months, I think some of these owners are starting to say, "Pull back, okay?
Okay, who offered
Maybe
the
we need to
money?
have a." Yeah, exactly. If
If
they
they
would
can't
offer the
get
money to the running backs a little bit more than they did now, the running backs wouldn't be dispensable.
well, they're not as valuable as they used to be,
No,
because they did the beatings they take. There's so many teams that have two-headed monsters at running backs, but that's like saying we're not going to have sex anymore. Why are you banning sex? Well, I keep getting diseases. Well, whose fault is that? It's kind of the same thing. You can't control yourselves because of the importance of the quarterback position. So I know what we'll do. We'll just stop spending so much money. Well, maybe you should have thought of that before you
yeah,
put yourself in this position. So, I,
yeah,
I, I will always laugh at people who root against labor. I
yeah,
never quite understood why we hate ourselves like that. We're labor. And even though this particular labor is making millions and millions of dollars, it's because it's afforded by the ownership. It's not because they're greedy or the players are greedy. Everybody would sign that contract in a minute. I
yep,
understand it's out of proportion to the rest of the world. I get all of that, but they're in a different world than
yeah,
somebody who has a so-called normal job, whatever you consider a normal job. Um, I don't resent it one bit. I root for the players to make money. Now you have to produce,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
hope you do. But when you consider what's available in that pool of money, and
yeah,
you're getting a portion of it, and the risks you take, and what you may look like when you're 45 years old for taking those physical risks, yes, well compensated, but still, money can't buy you, a new body. Well,
no,
knees and some body parts can be hips and stuff, but yeah, make
yeah.
the money, man. Make all the damn money you can.
Yep. My brother had how many knee operations and replacements, and he died at 77 years old. I mean, the it's a brutal sport, and I'm all for it. I just hope it doesn't get to the point where the money is so huge that
We're
nobody
already
wants it. And
there. We're already
you,
there.
you think so?
For the pro football? Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah,
These are
yeah, yeah,
billion-dollar franchises. I don't have the list in front of me, but anybody could find it. I think it's Fortune magazine that does this, that
yeah.
values every franchise. And there's a lot of them now in the billion plus range. If Jerry Jones decided, you know what, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm going to sell my team. He'll make a profit.
Yeah.
And his franchise is worth, I don't even know how many billions of
Oh, billions
billions
and
of
billions.
dollars.
His
Dan
kids will
Snyder.
never have to his kids and grandkids will never have to work a
Well,
day in
no,
their life.
no, no. But my whole point is they don't lose money. Why do we feel sorry for the rich guys? Like the
Yeah,
owners, the rich guys,
yeah.
richer than the players. I don't to me that's weird. Now maybe somebody can make a good argument for that. I'd love to hear it, but I don't see how you can not side with them. Maybe they're good. Maybe some of them are really good people. I'm sure
Mhm.
there are some solid human beings who own sports teams.
Yeah. No,
I
oh,
mean,
yeah.
you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
there's a bunch. Excuse me, but no, don't ask me to feel sorry for NFL owners.
No, I don't at all.
That's a load.
I just thought it would be interesting maybe,
Yeah,
because
I'm surprised to hear that story.
you're gonna be back July 8th,
Okay.
and, we're gonna have some fun then. Maybe we'll have somebody on as a guest. I don't know who. Maybe Joe Casale will join us. Maybe your wife will join us. Maybe somebody else
No,
will
we're
join
gonna
us.
save my wife for the Olympics. When am I on else in July besides the 8th? Any other
I don't
time?
know. I don't have it in
I don't
front of me,
either.
but
July, I will be on the road more often than I'll be home by a lot.
no, I mean, you and I are
Uh,
gonna you're gonna give me a
but
buzz tomorrow anyway
I
on a
am.
separate subject.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
so
you're gonna
pushy.
call me when you're
God,
on a
you're
s
pushy.
I'm awful pushy.
I'm trying to.
I got a hold of this guy over the weekend to see if he found if you wanted to bring somebody on, and he comes back. He says, "Man, you never give up." Yeah, I'm a little.
Yeah. Uh,
I love you. You know that.
you're a good man, Gary.
You
Always
know
a
that.
pleasure.
And let me just say real quick, thanks to the Japanese Gardens and the Elks Lodges of South
Thank
Florida
you.
for continuing keeping this program going. And from Dave Lamont to me to you until July 8th when he comes back on, because we're not on next week. Take care of yourselves and each other.
Oh, Jerry.
Thank you.